Coming to you from.
Excellent. All right.
All right, I'll start it off.
Yeah. Welcome back to Third Eye Weekly. Today we're joined by Adam Levin, who is the chairman and co-founder of Identity Theft 911. They've been providing services to countless organizations and individuals to protect their cybersecurity and data. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
And thank you for joining us.
Yes. So since 2003, you provided millions of individual households and thousands of corporations and companies with protection. In what ways since then have you had to kind of change and adapt to the hackers and the changing cybersphere?
Well, we have a certain set of services, and we've expanded them. We have 6 silos, you might say. Identity theft education, identity theft resolution, identity management, and then the new suite of services that have evolved over time has been breach preparedness, breach response, and forensics. Forensics are the guys that go in and try to figure out, A, if your systems are in pretty good shape in the first place, and B, if there is a problem, what happened, how did it happen, and who might have been behind whatever it was that happened.
So in relation to a lot of what the media is covering lately on, the bank heist and the SIM card heist, you've mentioned, I've read some articles that you've written about how there needs to be more communication on cybersecurity and cyber criminals and what exactly they do and how that would help limit the amount of hacking and breaching that's going on. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Oh, sure. Well, one of the big problems we have is that we have to adjust psychologically to the concept that breaches have now become the third certainty in life. Death, taxes, breaches. And then the identity theft that flows from them has become literally a dead certainty. If you look at the latest breach, which to me is the biggest of all, even though maybe in size people may not think so,
Right.
Anthem, where you're talking about 80 million social security numbers. It's almost like an Austin Powers, let that roll off your tongue, 80 million. And the problem is that when you look at that in relation to other breaches, Home Depot or Target, you're talking about tens of millions of credit cards. Credit cards, you pick up the phone, you make a call, they change a number, it's annoying, but it's over. With a social security number, this is forever. If one were to do an infographic, it's Target, Home Depot equals phone call plus new credit card number, done.
Yeah.
Anthem, forever.
Right.
The Social Security Administration will not change your Social Security number. So, one of the things the president has called for in the State of the Union address, and he has been calling for this now at his speech at the Federal Trade Commission and at the symposium at Stanford, the Cyber Summit that occurred a few days ago, is the concept of greater information sharing. Now, there's been an enormous debate in Congress as to how much information should be shared, for fear that as data is exchanged between the government and business or vice versa, that the files of consumers might also get caught up in this.
Right.
Not that the NSA isn't already listening and reading and watching everything.
Sure.
So the problem is that we've reached a stalemate in terms of cybersecurity legislation. We have got to share threat assessment information. Everyone has got to sit down at a table, if there is such a table, and you could ever get everyone at the table. But it has to be collaboration, and communication between business, government, media, and consumers. And that, it's like in New York, if you see something, say something.
Right.
Well, when it comes to cybersecurity, that really needs to be ultimately the call of the day, is that there are so many permutations to this. For example, if you look at the different breaches, you will notice that every time there is a breach, there is always something slightly different about the breach. Because what's happening is that hackers are becoming more sophisticated by the moment. We, the good guys, are trying to catch up. And every time we think we figured it out, they come up with a workaround.
Right.
So the only way that we're going to at least keep up, I don't even know whether we're ever going to be able to get ahead of it, but at least keep up with it, is that information has to be exchanged and everybody's got to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I remember at the summit they were talking about having these kinds of nodes that they would establish between information sharers, just to establish a kind of network where if one goes down, instantly everyone will be able to know and they'll be able to respond to it. But then the risks and implications that go hand in hand with that, well, or if we're going to link our information even more closely, then there's the risk of that information also being jeopardized at a faster rate than we can accommodate for it.
Well, assume that it already is. I mean, again, if we start with the presumption that we're all going to get got, as I say, based on that, you come up with what I call the 3 M's. You minimize your risk of exposure, and this is the same for consumers and business. You minimize your risk of exposure, you monitor, and monitoring can take many forms, whether it's checking credit reports, going to sites like are updated monthly, whether it's checking your accounts on a daily basis or signing up for free transactional alerts at financial services institutions where every time there's activity in your account, you're notified. All of those different forms of monitoring. And then the final M is managing the damage. And for example, for consumers, most people don't realize there are programs out there that are available to consumers free as a perk of your relationship with an institution, prime of which would be insurance companies, where many of them, as part of your homeowner or auto owner policy, have programs to help you through identity theft related issues. All you need to do is talk to your insurance agent about them. In many cases, they're free. In some cases, it's purely the cost of an endorsement, which could be anywhere from $15 to $45 a year. And then there are more sophisticated forms of damage control that have monitoring and all sorts of other things attached to it. But each person should basically contact either their insurance agent, their bank, their credit union, or where they work, the HR department, and say, do you have a program? Am I in it? If not, what do I have to do to get in it? Is it free? Or what is it going to cost me? And then you make a decision.
Sure.
So kind of attack our protection for our personal identities with more of the idea that, yes, it's going to happen, not if it will happen, but when is it going to happen? Because most likely it will happen in the future now, just by the more and more hacking going on.
Yes, there is no doubt. I mean, Anthem is just one example, and yet you're talking about 80 million Social Security numbers, along with all the other pieces of personal identifying information. So you have to assume it's going to happen. So you have to prepare for it. You have to be watching for it. You still should be minimizing your risk of exposure wherever you can.
Sure.
Whether it's putting security on your smartphone, on your computer, it's limiting the amount of information you give to people you don't know. It's not carrying your social security card. It's securing your, as I said, smartphone, because smartphones are nothing less than mini computers that we all have our lives in. So these are the kinds of things that we have to do. And it is frustrating when you see so many businesses, for instance, that are not protecting our data. I mean, the issue in Anthem is, even though HIPAA, which is the privacy protection law that the feds have passed, that's monitored by HHS, it encourages encryption. It doesn't require it. So a lot of healthcare companies and insurers will do some form of protection, but they're not required to encrypt the data.
Interesting.
And to me, the second that any business asks for anybody's personal identifying information, whatever it is, that it should be mandatory that that information is encrypted.
Yeah, I mean, especially Social Security.
Until we get off our addiction with Social Security numbers, we're in a position where we're always going to be vulnerable.
Right.
And everybody is asking for your Social Security. Half the time you should just say no. You go to a new doctor and they ask you for your Social Security number. You go, why? You got my credit card. You have my health insurance information.
Right.
Why do you need my Social Security number? The only reason why you need it is you want to be able to chase me if for whatever reason the insurance company doesn't pay you and my credit card doesn't work. But unfortunately, you can't convince me you're protecting me. How many times you go to a doctor or dentist's office and you look behind the front desk and there's just nothing but rows of files? Do they look properly secured to you? They don't look secured to me.
Yeah.
And now we've gone to digitization of medical records, and the only problem that's come out over the past few years in hearings and other forms of interview is that the prime directive with digitization of medical records is not security. It's been make the darn thing work. And so the good news is more people will have access to your information to help you in the event you're a victim of some accident or something where your health is endangered. But the bad news is all sorts of folks are going to have access to your information, and they're going to be on systems that are not properly secured in many cases.
Right.
Then what?
So it's got to be a largely more of an individual decision to secure our networks if we can't rely on a lot of these other large organizations to do it for us, or at least if we are going to rely on them in some way, know that they're going to be as secure as they possibly can about it. I'm curious how you feel about the whole SIM card heist that happened with the UK and the US. I know there's going to be a summit about it tomorrow in which they're going to express their assurance that everything is secure, but
Don't you always feel better when they tell you everything?
right, don't worry about it. It's
And the
all
answer is,
fine.
how in heaven's name do they know?
Exactly. I mean, clearly they're very concerned about maintaining their business and their trust with their consumers, which is probably why they're going to just kind of try and tuck it under the rug. But I mean, if we want to trust our government to make amendments to hacking and to make us feel safe, how can we do that if we can't even necessarily trust them?
Well, that's, the problem with government is it does what it thinks it needs to do in order to better protect us, but unfortunately, in the process, we are exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And, moving back just 1 second to something that we've been talking about before,
Sure.
is that, there is a chronic issue with government being basically insecure. I mean, if you look at GAO reports, the majority of federal agencies are not secure.
Mm-hmm.
So our data is out there. We know an overwhelming percentage of state agencies are not secure.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that so many corporations are not secure. And at the same time, even if they are, the problem is you could have the most secure system in the world, but all you need is one person to click on the wrong link that allows a virus or malware to get into your system. And perfect example, one of the most secure companies in the world, RSA, they're the guys that make the fobs for everybody else. Somebody made a mistake within the RSA system, and malware and a virus was introduced, and it worked its way down to the bowels of the company. Lo and behold, it worked its way into the security code that was used for fobs for just hundreds of thousands of organizations that use their security fobs.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, Lockheed was hacked. As a result, this is years ago, of a breach at RSA because somebody made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with Target, somebody at the HVAC contractor allowed themselves to get hacked. And as a result of that, they crawled in through the privileged access into Target because of a mistake made at a vendor of Target's. So we're now living in a world now where for companies, the company has to put itself in the place of the vendor.
Mm-hmm.
And say, I am my vendor. That as however secure I may be, if my vendor is insecure, I'm doomed.
Right.
And everyone that does business with me is doomed. So this is where we're getting. I mean, we talk about the concept of the globalization and how things are connected now in the new world we live in, the Internet of things like that. This is the problem, is that unless we're all in it together, unless we collaborate, we cooperate, we communicate,
mm-hmm.
somebody's going to have a problem, and then we're all going to have a problem.
Right.
I mean, yeah, speaking about communication, I mean, what if the government was a little bit more transparent in what they were doing with these SIM cards? What's your take on Edward Snowden's approach in just exposing what the government's doing rather than the government just being open and forward about what they're doing with our information?
Well, the biggest problem you have is anytime that anyone in government can label something as, quote, national security,
mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's off the table.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, there have been issues with how much security is, national security that people should know about. And ultimately, you see things that are declassified over time. As an example, the Kennedy assassination.
Mm-hmm.
That is sealed in an archive and is not to be unsealed until 75 years after the date he was assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
Some people said the reason is because when ultimately the world figures out who did it, it would be shocking, and if anyone knew within the lifetime of the assassination that it could have caused major upheaval. Now,
Right.
That may be the rantings of paranoid individuals or not. But then again, we're living in a time right now with identity theft and all the issues we face where a little bit of paranoia is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
They really are looking over your shoulder, unfortunately. Now, they will come up with, whoever they are, will come up with justifications as to why they should. But the issue is, if someone says to you they're not, don't believe it. And the question is, how much transparency is too much transparency? And the erosion of privacy is marked at this point. I mean, and plus we're living in a world where, I mean, even Mark Zuckerberg said privacy is dead. And, you know, perfect example. Recently, there was a report that came out that AT&T had developed new super high-speed connectivity for people. And I think that you would pay something like $75 for it. But if you wanted it to be private, if you didn't want them to track you, if you paid another $25, $29, it could become private. I think it was $29 a month. And the answer is, shouldn't privacy be the default setting as opposed to the premium setting?
Yeah.
I mean, this is where we're going, and this is what's so scary. And that's why when people operate online, you have to assume that whatever you're doing, somebody can figure out what you're doing. There was years ago, there was a study done where a woman who had done anonymous searching online, they took all this anonymized data and they ultimately could trace it back to a specific person based on the searches of that person. So, I mean, this is the world we're living in now. It's like, if you remember the movie Minority Report, where you would simply walk by a billboard, it would do a retina scan, ads would show up. That's where we're going. Some people think it's great.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like me, are terrified of it.
It's a little scary.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Adam. It was a pleasure having you today.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all watching, listening.
Excellent. Bada bing, bada boom.